Now let's add some joints and control for our eyeballs, teeth, and tongue. So first of all, I'm gonna start with the teeth. In this case, we have our tongue and teeth in the same mesh, so it's gonna be maybe a little bit harder to skin, but it's not a problem. So I will start creating two joints, one for the upper teeth and one for the lower. I will create in here for now. So just to have that joint created, and then I will move it to the center. So I want this to be somewhere here in Y, this one here. And let's see on the right view, I probably want this one to be in this position and the up teeth on this position, and I'm gonna rename the joints. Now I am going to create the joints for the tongue, and for that I'm gonna hide these geometries with Ctrl H, so I can see my tongue better, and I will create a joint in the root, probably somewhere here, another one here, 3, 4. I think that 4 joints is more than enough for this tongue, and I'm gonna rename it. Just like that. And now I'm going to create some controls for them. I'm gonna start creating nerve circles for the up teeth and lower. On create nerve circles. And I'm gonna do a match translation on modify match translation. I'm gonna click Ctrl D to duplicate my control. And then I'm gonna select a joint and again match translation. So we have the pivot at the same point. Once I've done that, I'm gonna freeze transformation of these controls. Freeze transformation, so we have all our values in 0. Modify, freeze transformations, and I'm gonna adjust a little bit this vertex. I will click Ctrl Shift H so I can see the last mesh I hide. So this is it. Probably want this one to be here. And I'm gonna modify the lower teeth control. To something like that. So that's it. Now I'm gonna change the color of my control. Enable overrides. I'm gonna use probably pink for these ones. And I will change the name of the controls too. Just like that. And I am going to parent my low teeth joint into the low teeth control. And same for the upper one. For the tongue, I'm gonna isolate everything except for this chain of joints. So I'm gonna click here, and I'm going to create the controls here. Nerve circle, I'm going to do the same. Modify, match translation. I'm going to do a freeze transformation at the end, and I'm going to shape this control a little bit. Just like that. I'm going to give it a color before we duplicate. And I will click Ctrl D 3 times, 1, 2, 3, because this one is just an end joint. I'm not gonna use this joint, so I'm gonna create 3 more with Ctrl D. I'm going to rename them, and I am going to match that translation to each of them. I'm going to click here to see my tongue, and I will probably hide my teeth, just to have a better look and to shape all these controls. I'm gonna isolate again just to see what shape do I want. And I am going to freeze the transformation of all of them, not the geometry, just the controls. Freeze transformations. Now we have 0 translate and 0 rotations on our values, and I'm going to parent. The number 4 to the number 3, P, 3 to the number 2, and this one to this one. So I have a chain like that, just as my joints. Let's take a look to both together. So now I am just going to parent my joint to each of the controls. And we have this behavior. This is the master, then this one, and if we move all together, they need to have the same orientation so that they go like this. Now let's skin these joints to our tongue geometry. Skin, bind skin. By now we have a skin also to this one on the head joint, so we need to disconnect that skin. Skin, unbind skin. I select the tongue joints, then my tongue geometry, skin, bind skin. And now we have what we were expecting. I will just leave the default skin for now. I think it works. And the same for the teeth. I need to skin the teeth now. So I need to add some joints here because we already skinned the tongue, so that tongue is actually moving the teeth. I need to add these two joints to the skin cluster. So I will click skin, edit, add influence. And now I need to select the up teeth geometry with vertex. And I will assign all those weight to my up teeth bind joint. Now I'm gonna select the low teeth vertexes. And I will assign that weight to the low teeth joint. And now everything is working. Now let's parent all the controls we did to the head. But first, we will need to do some groups on the controls to have these transformations on 0. Right now they are correct, we have translate and rotation on 0, but if we change the father of our controls, it will change. Right now they have a 0 translation and rotation with a world, but if we parent this to the head, they will have a new transformation there, because all these transformations are based on the father. So first of all, we will need to have some groups here, so I will just click Ctrl G, Ctrl G, and Ctrl G. And just to be sure, I always like to have the same pivot, so I would like to have the pivot of this group in this control. So I will select the group, the control, modify, match pivots. And same here, and same here. And I will just rename this with the same name that the control, but with a suffix offset. Just like that. So now, if I parent all these controls to the head, the groups are going to have these new transformations, but our controls are going to still be clean. Now, I will do a parent constraint for the jaw to the low teeth and tongue, because right now everything is following the head. If I move my jaw joint, the low teeth and the tongue are not going to follow, so I need to make some constraints. I will hide the head, so I will do some parent constraint from the jaw joint to the tongue and teeth offset. So I will first grab my jaw joint, then the tongue offset, constraint, parent, then again the jaw joint, now the low teeth control offset, constraint parent. Be sure to do the constraints on the offset group because we want to have these transformations free. So now if I move the jaw, this is following. Now let's create some joints for our eyeballs. I'm going to my side view, and usually what you have from modeling is a complete sphere. So for the joints you need to have the center of that sphere to have there the position of the joint. That way, your eyeball is going to rotate this perfectly. On this situation, I don't have a complete sphere, so it's a little bit harder to find the center of the eyeball. But because of this loop, I kinda know that this is the center, because this is the widest loop on the sphere. So this was supposed to be the center of the sphere. I'm going to create a cluster just to have that position. Now I have the exact position of the center of my sphere. I'm gonna create a joint on the front view, skeleton, create joint, and I will match the transformations from this joint to my cluster. Now I will delete my cluster. I will do the same for this one, so I will just Ctrl D to duplicate, and I know that this is the center, so I have them in the same position. Now I'm gonna rename these joints, and now I'm going to do a skin from these joints to the eyes. First I need to remove this skin cluster, unbind skin, and I will bind with the new joints. I will assign all the left eye weights to the left eye joint, and the same for the right one. Now, if we rotate these joints, we will see that the position is perfect and the eyeball just rotates without having any penetration on the area. We are going to connect these rotations to our user interface. We can also make an end control, but I think that the idea of this facial rig is to have all the controls on a user interface. Now, I will just parent these joints to my head joint. Another thing that we can do is to add some influence to our eyelids when we rotate the eyeballs. There's a lot of complex ways to do this, but we are going to use these joints that we already create to have some movements on the eyelashes and eyelids. So I will add these joints to the skin. I will hide the eyelashes for now, and I will just select these vertices of the eyelids. I will grow my selection, and I will add some weights there. So for example, for the left eyeball, I'm going to add an influence of 0.25, and then I'm going to start to smooth this. We'll probably smooth this one a little bit more. Something like that. And now you have like a fleshy eyelid, you see? This looks a lot more organic. So I will just do a mirror skin. And now we have this in both eyelids. We can now do a copy skin weight from the head to the eyelash. If I go to skin, copy skin weight, and I will copy the skin weights.